All right, welcome back. Penguins free agency continues. They already made a big splash by signing Brandon Tanev to a 6-year deal. That was a little controversial. Jason, I want to start with you on this one. When you saw that, were you of those people who believed it was too much term, too much money for a guy like that? Or do you think that satisfies a big need for them?
I actually thought both, Bob. I thought it was an exorbitant amount of money for the role that Brandon Tanev is going to play, but until we find a guy that Jim Rutherford can't get rid of, and we might be there with Jack Johnson, I'll admit that right now, then I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. At this point, to get the guy you want, if you think that he brings the skill set that this team needs, and I agree with that assessment, then you have to pay to get him, and that usually results in giving out years. So if Tanev works out the way I think there's a possibility of him working out, I don't think it's that bad, but on paper I understand why people are kind of upset by it.
Yeah, too much term, yes. I wasn't that put off by the money. I kind of said the same thing about Johnson. Where they're coming from, though, I think what they're thinking is if he doesn't shine the way that contract suggests that it should, if you're going to be a bottom six or maybe the last center, the last winger, making $3.25 by the back or whatever it was on the back end of this deal, it's not going to be like Jack Johnson, who you're putting out there as a defenseman who's supposed to log a lot of minutes. So the contract, if it doesn't work out to their liking, won't be as onerous as people seem to think that it is for Johnson now.
Yeah, I don't know about that, guys. I mean, we're talking about a player that's never scored 15 goals in a season, and he's never had 30 points, and it's now the longest contract given to a free agent in Penguins history. I'm not a big fan of this deal. I think the whole point of having a strong organization from top to bottom is that you find these types of players, these energy players, on entry-level deals, right? I mean, that's what helped them win back-to-back Stanley Cups. They found Tom Kuhnhackl and Brian Rust and Jake Gensel before he blossomed into a top wing guy. And you're paying these people peanuts, and they're giving you a big jump. So I've never believed in paying a premium for a guy that's going to play what, 11 to 12 minutes a night? It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, again, though, is it the annual cap hit that's bothering you, Andrew, or is the fact
it's both? I don't think a fourth-line player on a team that has so many.
Not going to be a fourth line player.
That's where Yoey has him, Mackey. I'll take his word for it.
Okay.
I don't see that at all. I think he's a third-round guy, a third-line guy, and also
he doesn't produce like a third-line guy, Bob.
Well, yes, I mean,
offensively,
okay, better than some of the Penguin numbers who are on the third line this year offensively. Plus, he does all kinds of other stuff. Don't you think they needed that?
I don't think you pay $3.5 million over 6 years, $21 million total for a guy like that.
Well,
no.
Maybe he's going to be their Cullen, whereas, I don't know, that McCann and Cahoon and some of these other guys that they got recently can be the Rust and Shearies, to your point earlier, Andrew, that they were previously.
Well, and right, and like Jason said, Rutherford's always been able to move contracts, and that's true. But have those always been good trades? I mean, he unloaded Connor Sherry for nothing but cap space. Is that a good trade? Where you just gave away a player that was capable of what, pumping in 25 goals a year? Is that a good trade? He got rid of him. He got out from under his contract, but that doesn't mean it's a good deal when you do it. I don't know.
The only thing I would caution, back to the earlier point, Andrew, is look at guys in hockey. What is on paper doesn't always translate to what reality is. I mean, Jake Gensel was a third-round pick. Matt Murray was a third-round pick. Brian Rust was a third-round pick.
Right.
Just because there's an evaluation of a guy in a certain spot, it doesn't mean it's going to be like that in Pittsburgh. So, yes, we can project him on a fourth line right now.
Let me ask you a question.
We don't know.
For about the same money, would you rather have Brandon Tanev or Brian Rust? Who's a better player?
I'd rather have Brian Rust.
So would I.
And
they're going to get
Bukestad. I would rather not have Bukestad than both of them. I would get Bukestad out.
So one of those two most likely, from all accounts here, is going to be traded because they have to create space because they have guys they need to sign. One of whom's already taken them to arbitration. So, right, who's it going to be? If it's those two, who would you pick?
Tim, if Bukestad's out the door, who's your third-line center?
Either Tanev or McCann or Cahoon. I don't know. Let's see who plays better at center, who plays better at wing.
Yeah.
To me, they've had a great three-center model when they've won cups, and Brandon Tanev as your third-line center doesn't exactly sound like a team that's going to win another Stanley Cup. So
they have a lot of options. I mean, you can go Jared McCann there. You can go Dominic Cahoon there. You can go Alex Galchenyuk there. Even Teddy Bluger, I think, has more of a ceiling. I certainly wouldn't want to be married to him as my only option as a third-line center, but if they would trade Bukestad, I wouldn't look at their roster and say, oh, my goodness,
I don't
incomplete.
think Bukestad's very good, and he's making over $4 million.
Right. Well, I mean, we're singing out of the same hymnal here. I mean, you trade Bukestad and you figure out the rest, right?
But again, Andrew, if Tanev is what Hagelin was, the guy that came here and people thought that his contract might be too much.
No, but Andrew told us he's a fourth liner.
What's that?
Andrew told us he's a fourth liner.
I'm just
It
going
can't
by.
change, Tim.
I didn't say it can't change. I'm just going by what people. Well, you were around the team, Jason. I guess I shouldn't say you don't have any expertise.
All right, we're gonna have a lot more Penguin topics, I'm sure, because we do all suspect there's going to be another deal to create cap space. We'll see what that is. Now it's time to go around the horn for this week's edition of Smooth Moves, brought to you by Pittsburgh's largest supplier of the smoothest granite, marble, and quartz countertops you're going to find anywhere. Armina Stone. So Smooth Moves, top to bottom here, gents. Let's go. Who's going to be first, and what's your smooth move?
I'll go first. I'm going to go with Craig Counsell today from the Pirates game. Did you guys notice he challenged 2 different plays at the same time? I mean, why limit it to 2? Challenge 3, challenge 4. We challenged the 1st through the 5th innings, actually. We didn't like those. We're going to challenge all of those. Give me a break. If I ever wanted to get rid of replay and challenging before, I definitely want to now.
Well, I'm going to go with ESPN.com. I know we're going to get to the U.S. women's national soccer team at some point, but their tweet that they sent out with Megan Rapinoe literally riding the back of an American eagle while flying an American flag, kind of in her preening goal posture there. That was like, I didn't think that ESPN could sell out any more than they did, but if you are going to virtue signal and you are going to pander, do it all the way. USA, USA, USA. Way to commit. Commit to the bit. Nicely done.
All right, I'm going to go with Joe West here, folks. Look, I know the guy played quarterback in college. It's hard to picture that with the way he's kind of ballooned,
like
so to speak, in the last couple of decades. Correct. But his blocking skills on Joe Madden, folks, I mean, that was something.
That was Madden not wanting to engage. That had nothing to do with Joe West.
How about the spin move?
It was slow motion. Madden,
well, I was waiting for.
He wanted a part of Clint Hurdle.
He didn't extend his arms and moved his feet. That was textbook. Punch Ilkin would have loved that.
I thought that Matt was going to do the Bud Dupree and run around the whole dugout.
He did. He got close to the dugout.
No, it was like Jarvis Jones rushing the passer. You're never going to get there. All right, those are the Smooth Moves brought to you by Armina Stone. You got to check them out because you will see Pittsburgh's largest indoor stone gallery of granite marble countertops imported from all over the world. They give you the smoothest countertops in your area. Score a touchdown right now with new granite countertops from Armina Stone. USA wins, but are they likable? Next.